This week in Tech and Society, we talked about military defense and all that. Um, we didn't really go over I know in class we didn't go over the entire chapter or anything. We were kind of just seeing what everyone thinks of spending a certain amount of money uh on our military, which I will talk about what I think and all that towards the end of this reflection. So first off, we have our national security. It's always been a topic of concern among the public, and it's commonly used to justify huge public expeditions to maintain global deployment of armed. Uh, Hold on, I lost where I was at. Armed forces develop and procure new weapon systems and manufacturing armaments. There was a graph which I know is from 2010, and I know it's from a while back, but this was this since I know the book is 10 years old that we're kind of using, so this I thought it was a good graph or chart, whatever. It was that the U.S. spends 503,000, and this isn't all in million, or this is all in millions, so 305,000 in millions, um, which is the most that we've spent on our military since 2005, and it's just for expedition or I can't read my own handwriting. Expenditures, close enough. And then it was China was the second. It was the second with 85,300, and then yeah, and and both those numbers are in millions, just to clear that up. The types of military force, there's defense, which we've kind of talked about with some of the should we spend, but I mean it's just where you're prepared, or you try to prevent an attack, or try to reduce some sort of damage. And then deterrence, I'm pretty sure I just butchered that. It involves the threat of a military power. They try to convince an enemy not to undertake certain actions, and you also protect a country from the physical attack by an adversary. Compellence. Oh, I had a lot written down for this. It involves the deployment of military power in order to get another nation to change its behavior to make the behavior more satisfactory to the aggressor. Basically, your military is designed to persuade your adversary to change their mind about attacking the certain country or group, whatever. You're basically just convincing them or trying to persuade them not to do it. Swaggering. It's also known as postering. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but it equates to the deployment of the military power by the government to enhance prestige. It's basically like your national pride, or your or it could be personal ambitions for someone. And then there's a policy which well, I'm also in U.S. history since 1877, so we talk about the Cold War, which I mean I just thought it was kind of ironic, but we haven't. I don't know if we're gonna mention this, but I thought I should. And I didn't even know there was a policy after the Cold War, so it's called the post Cold War nuclear policy, and it was split up into three or four different types, or people who run each part, or four separate parts, I should say. There's the high policy, which it's ran by the president and the National Security Council, and they I can't read that. They set national security, and they set basically your national security and war objectives. So like what are we gonna do, or what like what are we like what's our main goal of getting into this, or main objective, I should say. And basically, like I feel like they're also the ones that just they give the go on. If I remember right, I think they're the ones that give the go on whether we go to war or not, or something. I'm not 100% sure. It might be here more in my notes. The next one is programming. It's the Secretary of Defense. They set objectives and make decisions on like your military, or on the strength of like our military. So they have the power to say we need more of this on this certain branch, and like that. And they make basically get to make they make all the decisions on like how strong or our military has to be. And then there's strategic planning. It's the Joint Chief of Staff and Armed Services staff. They make the war plans, develop the strategy, and set like what what the requirements of like what our military can and can't do. Then the last one was operational planning. It's the Joint Strategic Target Planning Staff and U.S. military commands. They identify targets and implement the war plan. So basically, they're getting the plans from the higher power, which could be the president, could be the Secretary of Defense, just anybody higher than them, and basically they have to execute that order pretty much. The third world threat. I mean, I really didn't understand kind of reading that part of it. But the third world threat is like they're always worried about whether they're gonna be attacked or not, or by like a bigger country, because they don't have a large like military or army, and they don't have that quantity of military technology as well. So because they're like, I mean, they're like third world countries, like they're more concerned about trying to feed their people, their families, and all that. We also talk about international peacekeeping, which also brings up the topic of should we be the police of the world, which I will answer here in a bit. International peacekeeping, there's many great benefits. It can reduce the number or length of conflicts. And then NATO, which actually we talked about in this chapter, like my U.S. history. It's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and they're basically responsible for most like all peacekeeping activities. NATO, it was like first introduced after around or after World War II, maybe, and this kind of the start of the Cold War, kind of in that area. I'm not 100% sure when. I'd have to look in a different notebook and in different notes, which I didn't want to do, or I don't want to do. So basically, this kind of asks the question: should we be the police of the world? I think I think we should, because earlier this week you mentioned something about how there was a strike and they're saying, oh, we don't need the police and all that, and then something bad happens and they're like, oh, we need the police. Basically, like that's and plus, I mean, we are spending like all this money. We're spending billions on just like just on our military, and it might as well be like, since that's the most, and like, well, I don't know, is it the most? I'm not gonna ask any questions, but it's up there with like the most, and actually I think it is the most, but if we're spending that much, I mean, we should at least be the police of the world and all that. I actually wrote down Just a second. I mean it, and plus like we try to get people to like be more like us, like have our morals, like they want to like protect each other, um, kind of govern themselves, but it also like the cost. It takes a lot just being the police of the world, because you have to end up paying for other things. Some military technologies, smart weapons. An example would be like guided missile, cluster bombs. They're first off, they're like thousands of bomblets. Excuse me. And all those like deliver lethal explosives. Then you have your standoff missiles. They're accurate missiles launched from platforms beyond the ranges of like standard defense. I kind of think of this as like the like it shoots off the platform, goes into space, and then goes straight down. Like that's kind of what I think of it, but I could be wrong. And then there's bioterrorism, which it's just basically any biochemical technology and genetic engineering that is refined into the art of killing. So basically, those are like your biochemical weapons, or all the biochemical weapons kind of fall underneath that category, or that certain technology. And then your chemical weapons, it's like your poisonous gas. So like in World War II, the gas chambers, that would be your chemical weapons. Innovations to military vehicles. You have the Joint Strike Fighter, which is just an aircraft, which it's basically just an aircraft carrier. And then the next one is the Osprey, which I mean, it's a combination of like your helo and a plane, in one, basically. But it has just on the wings, it has the propellers on the ends. Then you have your UAVs, which are unmanned aerial vehicles, which can be control like the person controlling them can be hundreds of miles away, and look at all and kind of just like spy on people, like, and all that. And then you have your direct energy weapons. Chemical lasers, high energy beam, and it's a concentrated light, large mirrors that direct lethal laser power to targets thousands of, in the book it said kilometers away. So like basically kind of I think of all of these as like your satellites in space, or well, they're not satellites, but they kind of resemble a satellite in space. So that's kind of like what these are under this category. Your free election lasers, the radiation that electrons accelerated in a magnetic field emit short wavelength beams are emitted when the dimmer bonds are broken. Sorry, I couldn't read my handwriting there. And they disable any of your enemy, like any enemy missiles in seconds. So it basically just it makes your enemies, like they're all their warheads and all that, just it's like they can't defend themselves by that way. And they can be mounted on ships, aircrafts, or ground bases, and not in space. So that's like, I don't want to say we're wasting our money just putting them in space when they could be mounted, but the one in space you can kind of move. I guess it can move like anywhere, and all that. Like you don't really need all the ones on space. So, like I say, like I think you either have them on your ships, your what was it, aircraft, or any like base, rather than, or you have one of them, not just like you either have it in space or on the ground, air, or aircraft or ship. So I mean that's kind of where I think your neutral particle beams, they fire a beam of fast moving atomic particles at incoming warheads. Basically it shears the warhead and scatters its electronics, so the nuclear weapon house the like the nuclear weapon house inside can't explode. So basically, it kind of goes back to the last one where it's like um, making your enemies warheads, nukes, all that to where they just don't work and they're like defenseless, or they can't hurt and like they can't affect too much damage basically to you. And with that, talking about nukes, I just remembered another question, something else we talked about this week. How many, like we talked about, how many warheads, nuclear warheads, does the United States have? We have 5,800 nuclear warheads in the United States, or that the United States owns, I should say. And we were asked, is that too many? Um, I mean, I think it is because like there was something where you can bomb like the whole world or something like three times or something like that. I can't remember. I can't remember that exact number, but it's something like that. And like to do it three times, or how many? Like I don't think we need that much. And it was just kind of that thing that in the Cold War that we tried to basically keep up, or we were just trying to outdo Russia because we thought Russia was going to attack us, or we did all that with the spread of communism. And so that's, I mean, I guess that's kind of where we got all of our warheads, is just because we were trying to outdo Russia. Okay, before I go, question I'm going to talk about: should we spend 720 billion on our military? Well, in class, I said I was kind of in the middle, um, because I mean, like I'm not like 100% sure, like 100% one way or 100% the other. Like I know I shouldn't be in the middle, but it's just how I feel. And I like the part of me that says yes, we should spend that much is because we protect citizens from threats. It gives them a it gives them stability. It gives them like that sense of peace. And I guess it is. I didn't really think about it. I wrote it down um, earlier this week, but I didn't remember it in class. But it also helps like spend for like U.S. Um, interest. But no, but like the other half of me that's not 100% about no is just because it's the future educator part in me that says no, because that money could be like not all of it, but like a small portion could be used like um could be used for like education, excuse me, healthcare, all that, because like because here in Kansas, like when like deciding the governor and all that, the main concern is what's their education policy, what are they going to do with like funding and all that, which that money that we could take from the military. And I know it's not an exact number because like they don't, because the government's not giving us like an exact amount of how we're spending, but it's kind of a guess, or kind of like it's just an estimate, but it could be used somewhere else because like that money, because like I mean I know like some, because I know like there's some places where they literally cut um where they'll cut like certain classes just because just because of funding. And I feel like just helping like some of those classes, or helping those I know like taken away like from the military, yes, it does. I mean it does like you do lose some jobs, but there are teachers that are losing their jobs just because of like well, I mean I know there is enough money that for like education, but I feel like there can be more is what I'm trying to say. Like I mean like it doesn't have to all be spent on like our military. Like spend it somewhere else. Like I know there was someone who brought up like world hunger, which I mean, or hunger in the United States. I don't know if it was hunger in the United States or world hunger, but it was like taking some of that money could end world hunger, um, which I mean it's kind of hard to kind of argue both sides. Like I mean, yeah, it does. I mean, basically, what I'm trying to say is I can argue both sides. Um, because like there are some things like yes, if we spend it, I can agree on some of those things, but then like yeah, no, like I can agree on some of those things. Like I'm not 100% on each side. Like like I basically can just argue both. So so like I mean yeah, that's kind of where I stand. And like the military vehicles, that like equipment, all that we spend and get behind, like when I said yes, like it gives us that sensibility or stability and all that. Like I mean that's kind of what I agree with. But if you're just spending the money and not even gonna use it, like no, I don't agree with it. And I can't remember if someone brought this up or not. I'm pretty sure someone did. But like all the technology that we have has come from our military. So like I guess spending it gives us this technology and like what like Bill Nye, you'd rather continue going forward than going back. So that's I mean that's just kind of what I think. So yeah, I mean I can argue both sides. So I like I'm not like yeah I'm not 100% on that. Like I'm not 100% yes, I'm not 100% no. So that is kind of what we talked about this week in Tech and Society.